Welcome back to Range Anxiety TV. As you can see, we're progressing. We're talking GTRs today. Next to me, I've got the guru of everything body finish wise.
Yeah, that's me. Hey, world. Hey, Marty. Hey, bud. I was a bit of a paint tech back in the day.
What were you? Explain.
I used to look after the paint repair area inside of Holden's.
So you were busy?
Yeah, we had a lot of work on. we took care of damage, flaws in the paint, and I don't care what car it is, who made it, where it came from. You find things when you look around. You just do.
Yeah, and he's really painful because even though we're not talking about paint and body finish today, he just walks into the room and starts looking at things, you know, like, yeah, a bit of a flaw in the paint there and a little bit of a flaw in the paint there. And what did you say? It's impossible not to
find it once you've done that sort of thing. If you've done that as a job, you'll walk up to a car and people say, oh, isn't that nice? And sometimes you have to rein it in. Just agree with them.
Yeah, lovely. Because they've all got a bit of charm.
Charm, character, yeah.
And once you've seen it, your eyes
you can't
always
unsee
go
it. Yeah, it's best to stand on the other side.
So anyway, we're talking GTRs today, and we have here, what is this one, Paul?
This is the original. This is the original 35, the JDM spec, actually. Was this even released in Australia?
No.
So this is full import.
What year is it?
2008.
With some parts built on it that were built in 2007. So they stamped the rear mufflers and stuff like that, and you'll see that they were 2007
This has the full Japanese radio talking to you type thing.
Has everything. It's got, and we'll go through some of the differences in a minute, but the 08 started out as a personal import only, or a personal or a compliance car they were. There's a place called International Motor Group in Sydney. The same people that supplied the Nissan Leaf. Yeah, true.
Handy.
Now Road and Track Motors in Sydney bought a few of these in the day, and yeah, you could get them before they were released in April 2009.
So there was a little window where you could get them in.
Window, yeah.
Would there be many? Because these would be sort of rare?
Maybe, yeah, I think so. I reckon I know of about 10 or 12 that originally came into Australia, but I think later when the import rules relaxed a little bit, there are a few more 08s that have flooded into the country now. Most of them of them are pretty well hammered though. This thing here, 11,000 kilometres from new. It's done no work.
That's about 1,000 a year.
Yeah, well, no, less. Less. It's, what is it, 15 years old?
It is.
Wow. And then over here, yeah, don't swear.
Oh, sorry about that.
Over here we have the 2019 version. So, you know, how many years? 11 years between the two cars.
Yep.
Not a lot's changed.
Not a lot at all. I think we got a colour change and about, what did we work out earlier? About 50 kilowatts?
353 kilowatts to 421 kilowatts.
Which is a reasonable gain for, like when everything gets a little bit older, it gets a bit fatter and heavier. So
I don't think it got a lot heavier.
I think there's a few kilo in it as well.
There you go. Listen to you, GTR expert.
I'm always concerned about weight.
But engines, not a lot of difference. Let's step through some of the differences in the engines. When I point them out to you, these are things that are born out of our experience working on these cars. Not all of these differences are documented on normal videos or the internet as such. So we're going to step you through some differences now and talk about the engines in particular. Let's start with the 08. So here we are under the bonnet of the gunmetallic 08 JDM. This is the original version VR38 DETT.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about the engine, Paul. What was one of the big internet myths at the time when these came out?
One of the myths was that it needed rebuilding about 15 minutes after you purchased the vehicle. I remember that. That was I don't know how that.
They got that wrong. That was the trans.
Exactly, wrong end of the car, people. But the other thing was, and I don't know if this was just a marketing gimmick or just these things they come up with, plasma infused bores.
Yeah.
Now, these bores were like something that was unobtainium. Once this was done, there was some sort of technology that you couldn't touch them again. If you bored these things, you'd just bin it. Is that? Yeah. But that's not true, is it?
No, that's not true. The actual process itself is because they're an aluminium cylinder block, they don't run a press fit iron liner in them. So they can't run the piston directly into the aluminium because that just doesn't work either.
No.
So what they did is they used a chemical process to infuse an iron plating onto the bores. So they infused...
A reaction took place. It shot stuff out or something.
I don't know. But what I do know is Porsche have been doing it for years, and so are motorcycle manufacturers. They called it Nickerseal.
Okay.
And you can get bores re-Nickersealed, and you can probably recoat these. But I don't know anyone that's ever done it, because when that happens, they just go and get dirty old diesel liners put into them and, run an iron liner in them. You can
bore it, stroke it, just make it into a normal engine.
Make it into a Chev 350, bro.
Dart and sleeves.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Probably is.
Well, you can do dart and sleeves in a stock block, but it's not a great idea because you've got to take so much meat out of the block that it weakens them. So you don't do that. But you can go over. You can go oversize on pistons and stuff in the standard bore.
Yep.
There is room to move in there. Not a lot of room to move in there, but you can hone the things.
Just hone, no boring.
No real boring. Just a light tickle up.
Yep.
On the
with
surface.
With your dingleberries.
Yeah, so all of that needing a rebuild at 80,000 Ks was all just internet bullshit. It's a bit like your Tesla exploding as you're driving it down the road. It sounds good, it gets clicks, but it really happens.
You've made it to work again without another fire.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you're in the Leaf today.
No, I'm in the Tesla. It's over there charging in case it burns that place down. We don't want to burn down this joint. It's too nice.
Good call.
Yeah, so back to the engines. There were some differences. If you look, you're keen-eyed, and you're obviously not keen-eyed enough, even being a panel guy, look at all of this stuff.
There is, I did notice that, yeah.
What is it?
I'm going to have to pass, but it looks like some sort of crossover of what? Coolant tubes?
Coolant to stop the throttle bodies freezing.
Oh, snow on ice, bit of a problem here in Australia.
Yes, exactly right. So the 08s had that. They had extra cooling lines everywhere to heat the throttle bodies.
Yep.
Which were deleted, I think, in 09.
Yep.
Or 10. Yep. Gone. There is also something you can't see, and they have a smaller inlet on the front of the turbo, like the cast pipe that goes off it.
I do remember that happening, that the turbos were integrated into the manifold too.
The turbine housing is, yeah, which is not uncommon.
Nah.
Look at your Ford Ranger or whatever.
Yeah, same.
Same. It's just a cheaper way of doing things.
But that happened much later. This mob did this so early on that people thought that was a deal breaker as well. Never going to be able to change anything. 15 minutes later.
It's been done a lot, and it was been done a lot back in that stage,
Yep.
but it just didn't reach GTR pop culture status. So they had a smaller inlet that bolted on the snout, and in 2011 they went to a larger inlet. So one of the tricks was to put the bigger inlets, the DBA inlets, that's the next model up, on the CBA.
Yep.
And that gave them more power. It really didn't do a lot because it did something, but not a lot. And it's God's own job to do in the car too.
Yep.
Takes you a few hours because they're right down in there.
I do know, because I've been around here for a little while, that sometimes the easiest way to work on these is just to drop the bloody thing.
Yeah, well, you don't
out.
pull the motor out as such, you undo it all and lift the body off it.
Yep.
And leave it all in the frame. That works really, really well, and we're quite experienced at that.
Seen it a lot.
As an engine goes, they're tough.
Straight off the bat, they were good?
Straight off the bat, they're good. It's not uncommon to get a stock one, providing it's tuned correctly, to get an 800 horsepower zone and live a reasonable life.
Factory turbos?
Upgrades. Because in 2008, there was also a version that only came out in the Middle East. It was delivered in the Middle East, and I think a couple in America, which is called not the V-Spec, but the Spec V. And that had larger turbos on it. That had IHI VF34s on it, which are the same size as you'll find on a WRX STI of the same era.
Okay.
It's got two of them, and that's when I did a turbo upgrade for them. I was buying those STI cores, machining out the housing and the exhaust manifold with a special tool and inserting them in there. Now that's got a 10 mil bigger turbine wheel and a different cut on the compressor, and they're good for 50 kilowatts more. And without really any substantial lag, which is always a problem with small capacity. Not that these were small, but turbocharged engines. So that was a really good upgrade, and the Spec V had that standard. And then that was thrown away, that technology, by Nissan for another decade before it came back in the Nismos.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
These things, straight off the bat, so you're pretty happy with them, with nothing done to them but just a tune, big performance gain in that?
Yeah, there's no such thing as nothing done to them except a tune, because everyone put exhaust on them and stuff like that. And I remember back in the day in 2009, we ran one on E85, standard engine, standard inlets, everything, exhaust, and it was running 10.7s at 134 at Eastern Creek. You know, standard clutches, standard transmission. So they went well.
10-second daily is pretty good.
Yeah, it was, you know, back then. And the car was reliable. It belonged to a mate of mine called Duncan up there, and he tracked the living bejesus out of it. He was a track day guy as well. And yeah, it was a good car.
Yep.
I made lots of mates through people that owned these because we were big into them at the time. And the 08, it's got some problems, and we'll go through the problems in a minute. But the 08 still remains one of my favourites because it's got proper JDM street cred.
Engine problems, or you just mean, yeah.
Engine problems, there was a batch of them in Europe that got recalled because when they got them out on the Autobahn, they spun all the bearings. There was a faulty bearing supply issue with these engines. So I bought a few of those motors back in the day.
I remember that, yeah.
No,
and I do remember...
Not all of them had spun bearings. They just recalled them because they could.
Wasn't there an oiling supply issue with one? Did we not?
Oh, yeah. What used to blow them up, Paul? This is great.
I remember pulling the suction tube out for the oil pickup.
Yeah.
And
What
finding
was in
some
it?
silicon in there.
Like a
just
piece
a
of
little bit. Yeah, about a foot long.
Yeah. It was like a subway.
Yes.
So there were some manufacturing issues in the day.
Yeah, a
Block
bit of
pickups.
quality control. Hence, there was no name on the front. No one wanted to put their name to those early ones.
Nah, I think this one was built by a tofu delivery driver. One of the Red Sons.
That's it.
Yeah, so let's move on to the later model engine and have a look at that.